know, I've been like all of a sudden listening to some of Eddie Vedder's stuff, you know, the lead singer for Pearl Jam. And there's a song called Big Hard Sun. Does anyone know this song, Big Hard Sun? Right. And I mean, everyone knows the song except me. Like, right. And I'm just digging the song right now. Um, and I just listened to it really loud. And because sometimes, and I kind of mean it in a positive way, but it feels like living with a disability, you're being asked to drive in a big hard sun, right? Right. Instead of just thinking about it just as a dark thing, you're actually, and I know that song was used by the movie, I think, Into the Wild. So, and that where the woman decides to go out on the bus and never recovers. I think that's the, so I can get the deep kind of hardness of that. But sometimes it helps me to think about, yeah, my life asked me to go into a big hard sun, not just into a dark place, right? And it's a hard sun for sure. Speaking of hard sun, it's right there. This was unintentionally congruent with my words here, right? Because the sun's coming in because it's a beautiful day with all the trees, with all the leaves down, you know, the way that the embodied carbon. Have you ever thought about carbon as embodied carbon, right? So remember, the trees are taken in and the leaves, by the way, leaves are the expression of sugar, by the way. So leaves come out of trees because they're giving the sugar back to the world, and it makes it very pleasing to look at, right? But then when the leaves are gone, what you're left with, so it takes in water and it takes in sun being very low entropy energy, right? And it takes water and it doesn't take nutrients from the earth that it doesn't give back. But what it does is it exhales, the plants exhale oxygen, right? And trees in particular take the carbon out of the air and embody it as wood. So this is a thought I heard from Richard Feynman, a very powerful, no longer with us, probably the greatest physicist in the 20th century. Well, no, obviously Einstein, you know, but like let's say in the second half of the of the of the thing, he said when you light on fire wood, you're actually watching the sun burn, right? Which is an unbelievable way of looking at the through line of what's happening, right? That's the energy of the sun absorbed. The tree splits apart the oxygen, right? Absorbs the carbon, embodies it, and then you're burning the embodied carbon from previous sun, right? Right. That is then lighting, right? So what I love is when it's blue sky out like it is today, it means it's probably really cold. And when there aren't leaves, you get to see the contrast between the embodied carbon and the blue sky, right? And then there's the trunk and all of the branches going in patterns that they seem to be random. Of course, they're following the light, right? But Bethany told me that the relationship between what is the fractal on trees again? It's the relationship between the size of the branches and the trunk, or what is the ratio, Bethany?
Dave, you told us that one. Do you remember that?
We were just talking about fractal in general. I didn't talk about the ratios,
but there's a number of branches to trunk or something. There's some ratio here.
Sure.
So
it fits to the number of big trees, old trees, to the little trees.
Yeah, to the little trees. That's it. It's a relationship into a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing, what I love about that is that from the thing about fractals, right, is that from a couple of simple rules or things that it follows, a whole bunch of different designs can come, right? So they take all different shapes and stuff, which is part of what we try to, this is a thing I've been just recognizing lately, is that when we teach the principles of yoga without being able to teach the full-on physical form, we're actually teaching the fractal pattern or what's universal to poses, right? And they can take all different shapes, right? There isn't one shape of a tree or one relationship to big to small trees in a forest that works, right? There's a whole bunch of patterns, right? But they have underlying rules, right? Or they have a couple of simple rules that simplicity can create complexity, right? And unfortunately, human minds are really good at complicating things, right? And we call them explanations and stuff, right? And it's kind of interesting. And this is part of the big problem, I think, with medical science, is they're getting more and more complex diagnostic machines, which are great, but they're forgetting that that's just making everything, they're looking for causal relationships, which is good, except healing doesn't have to do with complexity, right? It has to do with simplifying, like knowing where your midline is. Human consciousness has a difficult time, especially human minds, the manifestation of consciousness mind, has a much more difficult time sensing the midline. So sit up straight and tall. What if there's an energy source at the midline? Right. The other thing that's crazy about the midline, and I don't want to like repeat the class, but my mind is still guffawed about this line, and it has been for years, that your bones are continually at the midline of every part of your body, pretty much. Right. They find the corridor. Right. If you had an off-center bone, it'd be a bummer. Although someone pointed out to me today that like maybe the rib cage is not in the midline, except it surrounds the spine. So again, sit up straight and tall. Why is it that mind has such a hard time on its own finding the center? Right? Or sensing the center. It can sense outwardly. So the mind, in kind of yogic, I hate to say philosophy, but conception, right? The mind is the organ that's pointed outward in relationship to the world. So, but it turns out that the mind most likely functions on think of it as let's just for metaphorically think of the midline, the energetic midline, as a core, as a tube. The eyes, the mind would be the eyes on the outside of the tube, right? Like it's looking outward. But training your consciousness to have eyes on the inside of the core takes a lot of practice, right? Because mind's going to always work from the outside in. And so you kind of want to exhale when you start trying to feel the inside, like you got to let the mind get quiet. So back to the instructions of that you need to separate the floor of the brain, biggest anger here, and the activities and the electrical inputs of the eyes. And he says, until that happens, the intelligence or the consciousness isn't going to ignite the whole body, right? Because the judging mind is trying to make things particular. So and the eyes are the brain is receiving the most, and mind is very connected to the eyes. So like, even if you can put your hands or put something around, like even pressure. So because Engar starts to innovate things like sandbags to put over the eyes or to put on the forehead. Thing is, you got to be careful about weight on your eyes because it can affect your cornea. But so by trying to put boundary around the eyes, however you're going to do it, right? What we're trying to do is create a state of shavasana, in the eyeballs, right? To really try to let go of the eyes, to not be drawn outward. So I suggest you do this, not just like think about doing it, right? Put some actual physical reference on your forehead. So you're doing this to find the hum. So even there are times where Biggest Angar would have people take an ace bandage and wrap an ace bandage around their eyes, like a bandage, because you wanted the stimulus to not be there. Now the question is, can you believe and allow that there's something in the quiet? So when you like start, it's not just that you want to close your eyes to try to feel stuff. You're trying to calm the mind down in the frontal cortex with reference, allowing that the emptiness that remains is alive. So there's time to think about this stuff later. You gotta feel it. You gotta stay patient. In this dawning quiet, activate direction by lifting your chest just slightly. If you start to feel your back muscles straining, you've overdone it. And then drop your chest. There's freedom of movement, little tiny movements within the quiet. One of the things you're trying to realize in a yoga practice is how to move without disturbing the stillness of the inner pond. So you're rhythmically, gently lifting and dropping your chest, trying to stay connected to the space, the separation between the lower part of the brain and the eyes. Synchronize your inhalation with the gentle lift in your chest. Keep the chest lifted as you exhale. Elongate your spine and allow the pond is still. Stay patient. Stay curious. Stay receptive. Good. And then release your forehead. Ooh, the light's gonna be bright. Oof, right. I'm in a big hard sun. All right, so now I'm gonna think that this place I found here, can I find here? What? So for me to find it, I hope it's true for you that you maybe want to ground yourself. So I got my arms on my armrests. I'm trying to create the structure around the empty space, right? So I got my elbows propped. I'm on balance. I'm trying to get sensitivity by touching my fingertips together. I'm trying to have my body open the door to my own suppleness, right? And I'm trying to do all that. So this part of me, the empty part in the center of my chest, can have dimension. So it inflates. And once it starts to inflate, and hopefully you can make this be a sensual experience, not in just your imagination, right? Not just mental. Once you start to feel the expansion or allow that the space in the center of your chest is full, drop your shoulder blades to follow it. So the instruction we usually give is drop your shoulder blades spread between the shoulder blades, right? And we try to like prepare the conditions for the expansion to happen, the inflation of the empty space, it coming alive. Now we're trying to do it the other way. Drop your chest. We're trying to find the space. And then if you allow it to inflate from darkness into action, then as you do, then start to do your most supple lift of the chest, drop of the shoulder blades, opening the space in the center. So attention to how you lift your chest. This is the most, a lot of the yogic tradition things, is the most integrated part of human consciousness, is the empty space. I'm going to say empty space, but is the center of the chest. Don't too quickly call it the heart yet. That's a quick overlay, calling it the heart. It's got more than emotions. Let it rise. Then follow it with your body's actions. Amplify it. Notice how you naturally at a certain point want to inhale. Don't waste it. So you're picking up the empty space in the center of the chest and you're trying to guide it into action. And then when you exhale, start to elongate your spine, hit down to your sitting bones. So we're starting in the abyss and stepping into action. You can't find the abyss, the midline, until you have structure around it. Good, and then release. I'm not sure I believe this, but I want to believe it. That space in there is as much like the sun as it is like the dark. right? I get there from the dark, from it being not there, from the focus. So lift your chest again. So like, for example, like, so now I do this a lot, but I want you to try to access the center of your palms again. So, but you know, even if your fingers don't go together, right? Right. So like I can imagine, so I'm thinking about Dave, I'm going to use you as an example, but like I'm thinking about your hands because the fingers don't quite do what you want them to do, what your mind wants them to do. But if you try to open the skin on your palm, everyone, and this is true for everybody, Dave's got broke his neck, so he's works with quadriplegia, right? So in order for him to open the skin and connect to the skin in the center of his palm, but this is true for everybody, right? You need to actually start the inflation from the center of the chest. As soon as you do that, if you're leaning forward on a table, your elbows start to ground more. There's this line I mystically say that the empty space activates your pose. It actually does. So now I'm going to add more force to it. I'm going to put the heel of my hands harder together, but not too hard. Don't want to disturb the pond. I'm going to raise my head up, drop my shoulder blades. All this starting from the stillness of the pond. Drop the shoulder blades, lengthen the neck. And then release. Keeping this part of your pose with you is incredibly difficult as the poses get harder, right? So you need to practice it on its own. When things are really hard, simplify in asana, right? Practice it right near the hub of the wheel, right? So you can bring it into action, right? So the thing what I don't like is that when I focus really hard, when I try to get my mind to really concentrate, the world tends to get smaller, right? I tend to narrow, right? And that ends up not having enough sun in it, right? So now we're just gonna move around a little bit like we always do, right? Oh, thank God we're finally out of the prison of focus, right? Mental focus takes the fun out of the world, right? It kind of does. It gets you places, but sure makes the world less humorous, right? So lifting up, I'm bouncing around. I'm remembering that really want you to keep moving now, right? Keep changing gravity. So in some ways, your bodies are constantly and continuously processing the force of gravity, right? And it tends to follow, like sit back in your chair, it tends to follow gravity. Your consciousness follows gravity, right? So as you sit back in your chair, now come forward, and you usually don't pay attention to it, but the weight shifts your awareness. And if you can muscularly feel, you probably flexed your muscles. I can't flex my muscles, but I can feel how gravity makes me more aware of my legs. And then I go behind the balance point. And when I don't have a clear path for the gravity, notice how my posture goes all over the place again. My neck goes, I have to hold the gravity somehow, right? So I'm going to go forward, put my forearms on my lap, right? So we're at the point of the seasons where the sun comes right through the tandem window. So I apologize, I come in and out of sun. So I'm coming forward. So now there's a structure that distributes the gravity, and it makes me more aware of my feet and my legs. And I'm pressing my forearms, my bones of my forearms into my legs. And I'm noticing the down. And then, like Sisyphus, I'm going to lift my chest in the opposite direction. Right? I'm going to go, wait, I don't just have to collapse. I'm going to extend. And then release. Here comes the weight. Here comes the indiscriminate collapse, right? Asana tries to utilize gravity shifts and tries to open the umbrella, opens the space. So I'm lifting my chest again now. I'm going up. Same gravity, different experience because of what my body did. I'm breathing. And maybe I don't like being this aware of basic stuff. So we'll do it rhythmically a little bit because rhythm teaches too. And the mind doesn't have to think as deeply. And that's good, right? You gotta get it kind of. So do whatever you need to do. So I could just move my spine, or I could lift my spine and be more aware of my forearms heading back on my thighs as my spine comes forward and then back. And then I'm thinking about not just the bones now, I'm trying to feel the skin. And I'm actually all this was already happening, right? All this was already happening. And now I'm allowing the full story to be let into my mind. I'm feeling my skin, the bones, I'm feeling the rhythm. And this all seems so simple. Not so, my friends. It is not simple to do a simple action, right? Good. And then release. And I can tell you, like, for those of us that struggle with balance, right? But I learned this when I worked over the years with so many people with traumatic brain injuries of all sorts. It's like things that you think are simple, like looking up, incredibly difficult for someone with traumatic brain injury. Rocking on your feet back and forth in some sort of rhythm, incredibly difficult. Heroic, in fact. But to rhythmically be able to rock on your sitting bones, I think everybody should get better at it, says one pirate to another pirate, right? What's great about asana is it allows you to steal from what already is. So it's not stealing, it's realization, right? Back and forth, right? I'm getting this, and go up and over again. I'm gonna go, oh my God, I can add stuff to this. And my mind's gonna be like, oh, I'll just open my head and back, my will take over the back bend. But I want to make this sensual. I want to like bloom my chest and the skin of my chest like a flower popping out, right? And so I'm not just gonna go and go back and go, that's the yoga pose. My God, a whole bunch of experiences waiting for you, right? So go back, open the damn thing, find how to include everything. Let it pop, let that empty space, not think the sun is big and hard, right? And then back through. I'm telling you, the greatest way to screw up a yoga pose is with your will, right? If you try it too hard, if you work it too hard, I hate to use bad words and make you feel bad about yourself, but if you work your poses too hard all the time, you're an idiot, right? If you don't work your body at all and try to think you can think yoga, so I'm spreading my legs now, I'm kind of opening up the stuff, right? If you think you can think the yoga and just hear the words and don't actually move your body, guess what you are? If we could go call response, that'd be where you'd say an idiot if you're not actually making stuff. But wait, I don't move my body as well as I want. I'm not as balanced. It doesn't look as pretty. It doesn't look like a ballerina's body. Just so you know, a ballerina injures their body really hard and fast. The most injured yogis I've ever had have been dancers. They've twisted themselves for the appearance of beauty. They've actually done violence to themselves usually, and then back. Same with gymnasts, by the way. Gymnasts, in the sake of making something be cool and strong and vibrant, right? They've actually are self-destructive, right? Partly because the audience wants to see a certain conception of beauty. And so I'm going back and forth. And yet now I'm going to get serious again and go, as I'm going back and forth and making it fun, is the center of my chest, is the empty space in the center of my chest. Am I utilizing the movements of gravity, or did I start forgetting everything? Right? You know why you practice a lot? So you don't have to forget as much. Because if these movements, if the wholeness of your movements has to become done by the mind forgets. It can't do everything at once. It's limited. Good, and then release. So I take very seriously the line from, I think, probably the greatest asana practitioner in the history of human being, when he says, even my very best students can only be aware of 4 or 5 things at once. Right? In other words, if you're trying to do yoga with your mind, you're going straight to hell. You're an idiot, right? You practice so your mind doesn't have to participate, right? But you practice, and the routine. So I'm pushing on my leg now. I got my leg up. I don't know if you can see it. Cross your legs if you can't do it. The routine isn't to make you be mindless. The routine is so you don't have to be mindful. Don't lose the symbol of crossing over one leg now, right? And I'm going to start rocking with gravity now with a different base. Now the weight on my sitting bones is different, right? Because you want to change your bases. Base variation is one of the keys to the realization of the potential of asana, right? So if you can't jump or step your feet wide, I'm going to switch over my legs here again. If you can't jump or step your feet wide like you can do in a full standing pose, right? You still got to introduce base variations with different movements of your spine. So now with my legs slightly crossed, I'm doing cat cow, let's say. Let's call it cat cow. I don't think it's cat cow, but whatever, right? I'm just changing the base because I deserve changes in base, for God's sakes. If your mind only was actually in a dark room, so this is what makes, can you tell I'm all over the place? You know what makes Descartes an idiot? He goes into a dark room, he lights a candle, he stares at the candle with almost no variation for his human consciousness and thinks he discovers the truth. No wonder he needed a faith in God, right? It was an idiotic methodology, right? Cross your legs again, right? So I'm crossing my leg this way. And I hate to throw shade at one of the greatest Western philosophers of all time, right? Just so you know, he did some really cool stuff, right? So cross your legs here and go the opposite direction. So you got part of your body going this way, part of your body going this way. What the hell? This is cheap yoga, right? This makes it be like sensational, but can you find your midline when part of your body's going one way and part of your body's going the other? Right? So I've got my pelvis kind of turned this way because my legs are crossed, right? Got my upper body going this way, and it's not trying to corkscrew as far as I can this way and as far as I can this way, right? It's that I'm trying to use the different directions to find the midline, right? The tension between the different directions in my body to elongate my spine. I'm not just trying to crunch my freaking body. I'm not trying to trick my spine. I'm actually trying to find my spine. So I'm taking a couple breaths here and going, damn, it's kind of cool to have my spine go in multiple directions at once. But only if I find my midline. And then back the other way. Whew, that was something on my rib cage. I don't know about you. That did something to my spine. All right. What did you notice? Taking the other leg over. Damn straight. Got one leg this way, my pelvis is going, whew. My upper body's going, whew. Right? Because it's a big hard sun. And this one's hard because I sink into this sitting bone really hard because of my scoliosis. So I don't get this one as good. I feel more gravity compression, right? Damn it. I don't feel as buoyant on this side. That's the beginning of the problem. So when I take this arm this way, because I'm sinking this way, you got to find the story in your own body, for God's sakes. Find your own freaking story, right? I know that I got to roll more so than this at this shoulder blade because I'm falling into a sinkhole here. I got to roll this shoulder blade more underneath my spine. So I elongate my spine to find the midline. Then once I do that, I let my pelvis go this way, my upper body go this way. And now I'm even holding on to my wheelchair over here because otherwise I sink into the hole. The hole I can't change. I can't change that I sit in a hole. I can't change that one of my butt, my glutes is way more atrophied than the other. It's a hole. I sit in a hole, right? So I need to vary out of the hole. So this is way more, I don't have to do as much yoga here. This is freaking hard for me. And then release. Back to the hole. Back to the unprocessed gravity. All right. Now, because I don't like that hole, I'm going to lift up. I'm going to get some buoyant energy in there again. Oh. Remember to do the yoga class. Right? I know I get all caught up in my own words, but you got to do the yoga class. Right? So I'm lifting out of this hole. So how do I stay lifted out of the hole that I'm going to have to be in? There's the hole. How do I stay out of it? Or how do I include it, the hole, into my yoga? So I know, by the way, everyone on the call sits on one sitting bone heavier than the other, by the way. Everybody, not just me. Damn it, right? So I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate the hole, my right sitting bone, and make it buoyant, right? So what the hell? I think I like this lifting up again some more, right? And then I'm going to keep that buoyant energy. I'm going to keep it being a sun rather than darkness. And I'm going to try not to lean into that hole, but I'm going to take my arm out wide. I'm going to find the way to keep it happening. Or I'm driving. If there's a big hard sun, I'm driving into it, for God's sakes. I'm driving right. I got this. You think you don't got this? I think you got this. Good, and then release. Now I know the big hard sun's going to be a little bit darker on this side because when I take this arm out, I'm going to collapse into this side and I'm going to feel like a yoga failure. Oh well, get that lightness in here again. And then, oh damn it, this one is not as satisfying. Well, and I stay patient through the unsatisfying part. I think I can. So what do you do with the fact that when I'm practicing this and using it in real time, I'm becoming seriously aware of how much I'm sunk into my right sitting bone, and I could very easily get discouraged about it. So what can I do? Oh, I got this. And then back, and then forward again. use gravity, use the lift out of gravity, right? So find the little movements that make you happy. Do you know the little movements that make you happy? Find a whole bunch of them. Keep yourself happy, for God's sakes. What are you, an idiot? I've been an idiot. I gotta tell you, I've been remarkably stupid for a long time. Right? That's okay. So for me, there's a little one right here where I just kind of pop. No one sees it. I kind of pop. Kind of get a little pop. Yep. It's like me, you know, keeping my chest lifted. Like, I got this little pop, but I'm not just going to lift my chest. I'm going to bring my sitting bones with a lift in my chest. Right? And I'm going to go pop, pop it up. And then if I'm really paying attention to actually what's happening, when I lift my sitting bones up with my chest, I actually feel my heels more. What? Yeah. Yeah, it's true for everybody. What the hell? Huh. You mean my nervous system is disconnected? Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. I just need not to be so greedy. Right? I need to actually start wanting what I have and letting it grow. All right. Down and forward. I like these twists. I would do this each time because it feels good on my body. Okay. And so I'm leaning forward. I'm using the bones. By the way, I like teaching adaptive yoga mostly better than traditional yoga to people because the traditional students are too greedy, right? They want more all the time, right? So I haven't taught traditional students in a long time, so they may have changed. I doubt it. I doubt that they've changed. They might have. You got to keep hope, right? Right? You got to keep hope. And then back. So I think about the wisdom of being disabled, right? So I'm forward again, I'm twist. So I'm down at my forearm, grabbing my opposite knee, or finding whatever secure base that you can, right? And then turn, right? So I'm making my spine, I'm actually trying to wring out like a dish rag. I'm trying to wring my spine a little bit by getting the gravity to help me get deeper into my spine. The rotation, I'm not going to use my will too much. I still want it to be sensual, right? But I'm definitely trying to get the water out. Good, and then release. Have you noticed, like, when maybe you've had this experience, or maybe you've never done a dish in your life. I have no idea, right? But if you tried to wring out a dish rag, have you ever noticed that there's a technique to it? You can try to win quickly by just scrapping the crap out of it and getting the water out, right? But then if you kind of make some space, and then if you don't have to wring as hard, and actually there's the next, you can do the hard one, but then there's a whole bunch of nuance that gets more of the water out of the rag, right? And then you kind of like go, and then you kind of go more slowly, and you don't use as much will, you don't think there's winning, and suddenly there's more water in the washcloth instead of a dish rag. Let's say a washcloth, and you can get, and then you kind of shake it a little bit. What's that translate to in your spine? If you're trying to, like, twists actually detox, by the way. That's why it tends to be a dish rag, because it's easier to think about the dirt that's in a dish rag, right? So why I like to lean forward and twist, I like to actually activate a sense of gravity. I twist always, but like I like to activate a sense of gravity into the depth of the pose. So once I'm forward on my sitting bones, my mind can be more alert. If I try to twist from back here, the gravity is not helping my twist, and my muscles have to do too much. Here on the front edge of my sitting bones, I actually get gravity to be part of the depth of my pose, right? So then I'm grabbing my knee over here, right? And my forearm is here, so I'm getting my bones involved, right? I have you can use your wheel. I got an armrest here. If you don't have anything, it's just SOL, right? Right. And I'm going to try to think about, okay, I could crank the twist. It's funny to watch overzealous traditional students think the farther they crank the twist, the more they're getting out of it. There couldn't be more mistake than that, right? So what you want to do in this position before you start squeezing the rag, elongate your spine, make space. Right, so find the midline. Right, now to support the midline, I'm going to tuck my right shoulder blade underneath my spine so I can get my legs more. Now I'm going to make sure I'm getting my head. I tend to bend my head too much because of musculosis. So I'm going to now try to reach for the sun, the empty space up here, right, with the center of my chest, right? And I'm going to not squeeze the rag too hard. And once my chest sees the sun, I'm going to pivot and open my arm. Right? So I love the expansion at the end, but only if I've earned it. Good. So if turning your arm up is too much strain and throws you off balance, it's not as much yoga. Most likely there's more yoga here than there is here for most of your bodies. Farther physically is not deeper. Right? And then I'm going to kind of wind out of it like it matters. Like twisting my spine needs to be done with respect. And then back up. I'm going to open my spine again. Because actually, I asked my spine to do a lot there. Here's to the unsatisfying, less satisfying, not unsatisfying, less satisfying, forward, using gravity to my benefit. In a whole bunch of standing poses, you end up making your torso be in different relationship to your legs. And it's part of a teaching method, right? So now I'm going to grab my knee, grab here, so I get my chest already moving towards the sun, right? Now I'm going to, on this side, I still have to tuck this shoulder back. On the other one, I have to tuck the other one under, but I have to be different on this side. And the reason why I know that is if I just tuck this side, I lose the midline. So here, for me, with my twist in my spine, I constantly have to get my right shoulder blade underneath me, right? I don't know what your story is, right? And so I'm getting open here. Now, I can tell you when I take my arm up, I'll be doing less yoga. This is more yoga for me, right? But I want to let myself have something, right? The idea of that, oh, see, this sucks, right? For my bottom shoulder, too much strain, right? So I'm not going to hold it very long. I'm going to come back to what's the yoga for me. Because what happens to me is when I take the arm up, my spine compresses and gravity starts feeding my body the wrong way, right? I'm not able to keep the extension of my spine. So I'm going to try to fix it. I'm going to try to really keep the extension of my spine really hard and then open my arm. Now there's so much more strain here. But I'm going to do it to remind myself that it's there. Good, and then come on back to center. Ooh. Ah. That one's harder, right? Oh, I'm bouncing down. Oh my God, I have no idea what time. Oh, we got time. We got time. We got time. Tons of time. So I'm going to open up. So one of the so I'm going back and forth because so I had this kind of day surgery on Friday and they were very busy and they were moving people through kind of like herds of cattle, right? Because they're trying to make a lot of money. Right? This is a great hospital too. So I'm there and I'm just watching how busy the nurse is. Just going from place to place. And especially when I'm coming out of the light anesthesia, like I wake up, and this is a great thing. I hope this happens to you sometimes. I woke up and I just felt incredibly grateful, not even for the surgery or anything, just like grateful, right? Just like, oh my goodness, right? And I had this really hit of sadness that they're working and they're never having the sensation of time, right? Because they have so much to do. And one of the things I know that I've gotten from my yoga practice is that I know how to feel time without getting impatient. So I'm leaning forward right now. I probably had to, so time goes out of awareness in Shavasana. But I know how to sit, and one of the superpowers of disability, because you have to lose, the key to forming patience is to start to appreciate the sensation of time passing. So I'm just sitting here without movement, letting it feel. Too bad with all the devices and screens and social media, we're losing track of being able to feel time. Like it's a bad thing. So I sit here knowing Shavasana is coming. I don't even know. The present already is. When people say stay in the present, what a crock of crap, right? You're already in the present, kind of always. It's whether you can receive it. You don't stay in the present, you're in the present. It's whether your mind can actually integrate with the body that's in the present. As I sit quiet here, I start to realize how much better the oxygen goes into my right lung than my left. Or the way my structure of my body is, I don't get as much in my left. I'm gonna just try to change that a little bit. Funny, because the right one's the one that collapsed for me. Why I would make the injured one do the most work is interesting. So for a while, I'm going to try to make sure I'm breathing into each nostril, filling each lung, leaning forward in the structure and using gravity to help me balance my breath. Now I want to take some time to switch my position and receive my chair. Let it hold me up. Pretty grateful for the chair, actually. So to receive the support of the chair, I have to let go of the edges of my mind, the places I try to make particular. Because when I try to do that, I make the chair disappear, the support of it. If I don't soften the edges, if I keep it sharp, I don't receive the support. Clarity on the inside, gentleness on the edges. Be a humble receiver. All right, and then prepare more for Shavasana. I don't want to have to hold myself up. So I come behind my balance point and lean against the chair. Come forward, you can lean against your hands, you can do all sorts of things, right? But you want to rest your phones. Maybe utilize your skin and fingertips to remember and feel subtlety. Oof. I struggle with my neck too much. It keeps me centered by grip, so I'm trying to let go of that. When the silence leads, when the emptiness leads, I discover things. Soften the inside of your mouth, around the temples, the jaw. Even let go of your teeth. I hope some of you have made progress on relaxing your belly to relax your throat. That was like fireworks for me. Fireworks of relief. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Think your body. Think it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. Lips together, teeth slightly apart, and then notice that as you open your eyes. Another level of input. So I say close them again often so you can go, okay, I'm gonna do it again now. I'm gonna know what's there. I'm gonna come into the light differently when you open your eyes again. You mean I can come into the light differently? Yes. Yes. It's a huge lesson coming out of Shavasana. Right? Hands together. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you. Or whatever. I'll stay